Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is the Closing Bell on the Stock Movers Report. The companies making moves at the close of U.S. trading with Carol Massar, Tim Stenovec, Romaine Bostick, and Scarlett Fu.
Large caps in the S&P 500 at the close, a little bit more negative and kind of an even split here, guys. 250 names, Katie, to the upside, 253 to the downside.
Wow.
Yeah, almost even.
Almost even. Pretty dang close. Same thing, too, when you take a look at the circle here. You had 6 sectors finish in the green, 5 in the red. But take a look at what is red on that pie. Information technology, that was your biggest points loser on the day. That's why we had such a negative day in the markets. In terms of what did well, healthcare, energy, communication services, consumer staples as well. But again, tech, consumer discretionary, and industrials, the biggest weights, Carol.
All right, you mentioned healthcare, and kind of I'm looking at the medical space here as really a top performer in today's session. In fact, the number one gainer in the S&P 500, Medtronic, ticker MDT, that stock finishing with a gain of 4.6%. We did see it up the most in 5 years, its highest intraday in about 3.5 years. The news, the medical device maker lifted the bottom end of its range for adjusted profit forecast for the year. Company also boosted its organic revenue outlook, following better than expected results in the second quarter. As I said, I just want to clarify, up the most in 5 years and its highest intraday in about 3.5 years. So anyway, some outperformance, not a name that we talk about on a regular basis. Merck, also an outperformer here. This one up about 3.9% in today's session. The drug maker set a mid-stage trial of its drug for a rare form of high blood pressure, met its main goal. So analysts see this as a win, a trial win, as a potential for an expanded market for its drug Winrevair. Stock, though, still down about 2% year to date. And then I just want to mention strategy, because this one up about 5.8%. I'm not exactly sure why. Bitcoin has fallen so much, about 30% from its 2025 peak. So we did have a story in the Bloomberg, a rare euro-denominated preferred stock offered by Michael Saylor's Bitcoin treasury company has fallen below its offer price. I don't know. I'm not quite sure why
Bitcoin bounced off its recent lows today, so maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah, and you're also talking about a stock that's down, 37% in the past 6 weeks, so that could have something to do with it too.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the
Sure
assist.
thing.
It's a group effort.
Glad we can help.
I will give you a pinky ring now.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's talk about what's going on the downside. Stocks in the red today. Nvidia shares falling 2.8%, down for another day. The company, of course, reporting after the bell tomorrow, just after 4 o'clock. We'll have special coverage in those results live as soon as we get them. Shares falling as much as 3.7% earlier in the session. They're now down 12.4% from those all-time highs back in October. We should note, too, Microsoft, along with Nvidia, committing to invest up to a combined $15 billion in Anthropic. That's a move that ties Anthropic, which makes Claude closer to 2 of the biggest backers for its rival, OpenAI, which, of course, makes ChatGPT. In tech, also today, Amazon shares fell 4.4%. Microsoft closed out the day 2.8% to the downside. These companies saw their ratings cut to neutral from buy on Tuesday as Rothschild & Co. Redburn's Alexander Heisel downgraded the stocks for the first time since initiating coverage back in June 2022. He writes that the industry's, quote, "Trust us, Gen AI is just like the early cloud 1.0 narrative looks increasingly misplaced." He stated that underlying economics are, quote, "far weaker than assumed." And finally, Home Depot shares falling 6% today. The company cut its full-year earnings guidance. It warned that some unsteady consumers are hitting the pause button on big-ticket home purchases. We're going to get more numbers tomorrow. We'll get Target, we'll get Lowe's, we'll get Williams-Sonoma, we'll get TJX, we'll get Walmart later this week, so we'll get a better idea of what the consumer is doing, seeing if this is more of a one-off or if this is something bigger.
Well, just an honorable mention, I was keeping an eye on shares of Klarna. They finished down more than 9% on the day, worst day since they went public just a few months ago. And the idea that they're setting aside a lot more money, Tim, for potential credit losses, that seemed to rattle a lot of folks. And when you start to talk about consumer spending, it's not always just about whether people want to spend, but also the idea that if you have a more holistic environment where things are deteriorating, does that then become a factor with regards to people continuing to spend?
Yeah, I feel like these buy now, pay later, you think that just because these companies are busy, it's a good sign, but it in terms of for them, but what it says about the economy and maybe consumers feeling a little bit
like what are people paying later for?
Yeah.
That's the big question.
Yeah.
And are they paying later?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and these are some of the things that, of course, the Fed is going to have to debate at its meeting in about 3 weeks. And you take a look at where yields went today, and I think it really shows you kind of the breakdown, I think, in bets and exactly which direction the Fed would go. We should point out that the implied probability on the Bloomberg terminal of a rate cut in December is still under 50%. But when you consider some of the deterioration we've seen in labor market data, maybe some of the deterioration that we're seeing in some of the consumer company earnings, maybe that changes what exactly the Fed has to do when they meet in 3 weeks.
The Stock Movers Report from Bloomberg Radio. Check back with us throughout the day for the latest roundup of companies making news on Wall Street. And for the latest market-moving headlines, listen to Bloomberg Radio live. Catch us on YouTube, Bloomberg.com, and on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app.